Today we're going to be learning a little bit about World War II. As I read this article, we're going to stop and reflect to talk about the main idea of each section. Each section is divided by different headings. This article is called World War II in the pink heading, and the first section is titled What was World War II in the orange heading. World War II involved many countries around the globe fighting against each other, including the UK. It lasted 6 years, from 1939 to 1945. The war became a global conflict after the German military, led by Adolf Hitler, invaded Poland in 1939 because he wanted to take some of their land for Germany. France and Britain declared war on Germany because they didn't think what Germany was doing was right. Then Italy joined with Germany, and gradually other countries in Europe and around the world became involved with either the Allies or the Axis powers. Life during the Second World War was very difficult. Today, we mark special days to remember the many millions of people who fought and died during World War II. We're at the end of this section, so we're going to stop and reflect. I'll give you a minute to think about what you think the main idea of the section is. In this section, we learned that World War II was a war that lasted 6 years, from 1939 to 1945, and that it involved many countries around the world. There were two sides of the war, called the Allies and the Axis powers. We're going to skip on down to the next section. If you would like, you're welcome to come back to this article. It's linked on the website. And you can explore some of the photos and other items on the article. This section is titled About. Because it's a longer section, we'll stop throughout the section to reflect on main idea. The main countries and leaders that made up the Allied powers were Great Britain, led by Prime Minister Winston Churchill, the United States, led by President Franklin D. Roosevelt, France, led by Charles de Gaulle, the Soviet Union, led by Joseph Stalin, and China, led by Chiang Kai-shek. The three main countries and leaders that made up the Axis powers were Germany, the Nazis, led by Adolf Hitler, Italy, the fascists, led by Benito Mussolini, and Japan, known at that time as the Empire of Japan, led by Hideki Tojo. The Emperor of Japan during World War II was Emperor Hirohito. Let's stop and reflect. In this section, we learned that the war was divided into two powers, called the Allied and the Axis powers. The countries that made up the Allied powers were Great Britain, the United States, France, the Soviet Union, and China. And the three countries that made up the Axis powers were Germany, Italy, and Japan. World War II began when the UK and France declared war on Germany after German troops led by Adolf Hitler had invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939 to claim land there as their own. Hitler had already invaded Austria and Czechoslovakia, so the war began over his plan to take more land for Germany. Let's stop and reflect. What is the main idea of this paragraph? World War II began when Adolf Hitler tried to claim land for Germany as their own, and the UK and France declared war on him. The Siege of Leningrad is a famous event during World War II. For 900 days, from September 8, 1941 to January 27, 1944, the city of Leningrad in Russia was surrounded by German troops. That meant everyone inside the city had to stay there, and that there wasn't any way for food or other provisions like medicine to get in. Many hundreds of thousands of people died during this time, between 600,000 and 800,000, because there wasn't enough food or heating to go around. but the people who lived in Leningrad refused to surrender to the Germans. Let's stop and reflect. What is the main idea of this paragraph? During World War II, there was an event called the Siege of Leningrad that lasted for 900 days when German troops surrounded the city in Russia, but the Russians did not surrender to German troops. In 1940, the French port of Dunkirk was the location of a big turning point for the Allies in World War II. Hitler's armies bombed Dunkirk heavily, and many Allied troops were waiting on the beach to be rescued because they didn't have the resources they needed to fight back. From May 26 to June 4th, over 550,000 troops were ferried to safety across the English Channel. The codename for this was Operation Dynamo. Some British civilians, or people who weren't in the army, even used their own boats to help save as many people as they could. The rescue operation helped to boost morale in Britain, where they really needed some good news. This helped in going into the next major event in World War II, the Battle of Britain. Let's stop and reflect. What's the main idea of this paragraph? In 1940, Dunkirk was the location of a turning point for the Allies when many troops were rescued by boat. The Royal Air Force were the stars of the Battle of Britain, which is the first military battle to be fought entirely in the air. In Operation Sea Lion, Hitler planned to invade Britain and add another country to his list of conquests. But first he had to fight off the RAF, which is where he ran into trouble. Britain's RAF beat Germany's Luftwaffe, but after a long series of battles from July 10th to October 31st in 1940. The whole thing is called the Battle of Britain because it's what made Hitler eventually change his mind about trying to invade the UK, and he went after Russia instead. The RAF pilots showed tremendous courage and bravery as they kept fighting the Luftwaffe, even when it looked like they might lose. Let's stop and reflect. What's the main idea of this paragraph? The Battle of Britain was the first military battle to be fought entirely in the air using airplanes, and the Royal Air Force of the UK beat Germany's Luftwaffe. June 6, 1944 is also known as D-Day. On that day, the Allied forces launched a huge invasion of land that Adolf Hitler's Nazi troops had taken over. It all began with boats and boats full of Allied troops landing on beaches in the French region of Normandy. They broke through the German defenses and carried on fighting them back through Europe for the next 11 months until they reached Berlin, where Hitler was in hiding. Let's stop and reflect. What's the main idea of this paragraph? D-Day was an event during World War II when the Allied forces launched an invasion on land that the Nazi troops had taken over. The Battle of the Bulge took place from December 16, 1944 to January 25, 1945, and was the last major effort by Hitler to defeat the Allies. He had hoped to break up the parts of Western Europe the British, American, and French troops secured by splitting the area in half. This would mean that the armies wouldn't be able to get supplies across to each other, and would make them easier targets for Hitler and his army to fight against. But all Hitler did was to make the Allied line of troops bulge in the middle as he fought to push them back, and the line didn't break completely. So he didn't accomplish his goal, and the Allies won the battle. Let's stop and reflect. What's the main idea of this paragraph? The Battle of the Bulge was Hitler's last effort to defeat the Allies. He'd hoped to break their lines, but he did not succeed. Thank you for watching this video. You can locate this article on the website if you'd like to navigate it a little more.